I get shit done, I have fun. It's my time and I'm the one. I'm breaking through.
Well, is it your time? Are you breaking through? Welcome to another episode of the Business Renovator. Today, a journey from a challenge to clarity in making a meaningful impact. I'm looking forward to sharing my guest ideas, thoughts, and experience about how a young lady in his life had a huge impact on him. And well, I won't spill the beans yet, but just stay tuned and be prepared for that. You can go to his website at yinstitute.com if you would like to have a sneak peek before we get into the actual talk. I'd like to welcome you if you're watching us live. Thanks for being here today. If you're watching us on the replay, hey, we thank you for taking time to fit us into your schedule. We also enjoy getting the feedback, the good, the bad, and the ugly, just like that Clint Eastwood movie, if you're old enough to know about that. Because that feedback lets us know what's working, what's not, and what you would like to hear, or who you'd like to hear from, or what's kind of stories, because you just never know what you're going to hear from one of the guests on here that could have a huge impact for you or somebody in your community. And if you know somebody who has a story that you would like to help them get it out, the Business Renovator is a place to do that. I'm going to do a shameless plug right now because this is how I sponsor myself. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, and like to get an idea, get a finger on the pulse where you are with a business growth score, go to coachphil.ca, click on the business growth score button, and it's an assessment. It asks you a number of questions. You'll get the report and information. No credit card required. It's absolutely complimentary. If you have questions around it that you want an answer, there's also an opportunity to have a 30-minute coaching call with myself or one of my esteemed associates from around the globe. So keep that in mind. It's complimentary. We're here to serve and help those who are looking for a hand up. And, sometimes I've had people do the business growth score and the report just lets them know they're on the right path and there's no room at this point in time that they need assistance with. So it's there for your use. What I like to do now, though, is, this is really about a journey from challenge to clarity and making a meaningful impact. I was introduced to this young fella, not that long ago by networking. It's amazing how that works. And we had a conversation. We've had a couple since the first introduction, and I'm quite impressed with this individual's path. He's very successful in his own right. And he's going to share some information and impart some of his experience in the time we have allocated today. So he is a remarkable guest who's redefining success through purpose-driven growth and transformation, not transportation, but although you could transport yourself. Joining us today is Dan Dominguez, a visionary leader and the Chief Growth Officer at Y Institute. Dan's journey is an inspiring testament to the power of purpose, which is a rich background as the former national sales director of Baxter Healthcare, responsible for billions, not millions, but billions in sales. He unexpectedly chose a path less traveled in the pursuit of greater impact and authenticity. Driven by a profound belief that success is about positively impacting the lives of others, Dan's quest for meaning led into a pivotal moment prompted by a journal entry from his young 7-year-old daughter. I told you there was a young lady involved in this. The pivotal journal entry set him on a path of introspection and change. Guided by Dr. Gary Sanchez, the founder of the Y Institute, Dan discovered this unique why his unique why, actually, the fundamental driving force behind his actions and decisions. His awakening brought immense clarity and sparked a transformative shift in his life. Now, as the Chief Growth Officer at Y Institute, he is spearheading the international expansion, revolutionary Y discovery process. And if you've heard of Y before, maybe it has something to do with Simon Sinek because it's on that same path. This process, regarded as the first step in self awareness for coaches, consultants, creative, and forward thinking companies, unlocks untapped potential and propels individuals and organizations toward their own greatest success. What sets him apart is his commitment to challenge the status quo, infuses fresh perspectives in every endeavor he does. He is a firm believer that making meaningful connections is a key to unlocking dreams. And his favorite question is, how can I help? How can I help? So he's here today to help us with some things by sharing his story. His journey from corporate success to purpose-driven significance showcases the power of aligning passion with action. Oh, action is key, isn't it? So if you're eager to learn about transformative impact of discovering your own why, the art of making authentic connections and embracing growth through purpose, hang out of your seat. You're in for a treat. Get ready to be inspired from the wisdom of Dan Dominguez. I'm going to bring him up here right now. Push this button, and here he is. Good day and welcome to the show, Dan. Appreciate you taking time to hang out with us this morning and to share some of your wisdom.
Good morning, Coach Phil. Hey, it's a pleasure to be here with you. You've got a lot of wisdom you've shared with me, and that's a big introduction. I'm gonna work really hard to live up to it. Thank you very much for that generous introduction.
Well, I was trying to pare it down to make it shorter, but I didn't know what to leave out. So, as I may not have read it as smoothly as it you live the principles, but that's okay. We've got you. That's the main thing, right?
Well, we can get into the details later, but there's a lot there to cover, and I'm just excited to share with your audience. I love the idea of the Business Renovator and what you do. So, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. The idea behind it. You know what's in the back of my head is where the lessons come from and where the inspiration comes from. And I'm going to jump right into the leader in your life, your daughter. Her journal entry you did a 180, right? You were hugely successful in a corporation. Was it global? I mean, it was huge.
It's
Billions.
global, yeah. I mean,
How many people?
if you've been in the hospital, Phil, you've
Yeah.
seen a Baxter IV bag. They invented the IV bags. Great company, great corporation. Spent 17 years at Big Blue doing amazing things and fun things and selling things. That's what I do for a living. I think sales is a calling. It's something that if you feel good about helping people find solutions and giving them to them, that's what I've done my entire life. And I got a chance to do that for 17 years at Baxter.
Yeah. Well, did you just wake up and go to work for Baxter? How did the journey to getting there? I know you have some pretty significant formal education, but after
Yeah.
that, then what happened?
Well, Baxter came to me. I was I was in the military, spent some time in the military, came out of the military. And when I was a young junior officer, I found out that I plan to stay in the military for 20 years, retire, and do the whole by the book thing. But recruiters came calling right around my third year in the military, and they said, "Hey, we like junior officers. They have a work ethic. They know how to accomplish goals, and they're pretty disciplined. And we'd like you to come sell our little product that we have." So, a pharmaceutical company came calling, and I made the decision to leave the Army and go join a pharmaceutical company and help them market a little known product called Prilosec, little medicine for heartburn. It was just launching, and not much was expected of it. I think the first year we had $500,000 in sales, and the time I left, it was $7.5 billion a year, and that led me to meet folks in the medical industry. And I went from there to a medical device sales job where I sold endoscopes to gastroenterologists, the same people that were using Prilosec to treat heartburn. And I spent a few years doing that when Baxter came calling, and they said, "Hey, we like what we see, and we'd like you to come over and sell for us." And what I did is I sold dialysis. So I was in their dialysis division, and that's where I've been at the longest. I was there 17 years, advanced from a sales rep to a regional manager to a national sales director, managing one therapy, to an area sales director, managing 3 different therapeutic areas and a large sales force across the Western U.S. And that's where I was when we had that journal entry that you talked about, Phil.
Well, yeah, I talked about it because you brought it up, and then when we were having a virtual coffee meeting, and you told me the lever or the impetus of change was that journal entry that your sweetheart um, put in there. It was kind of a kick in the head in a loving way. It was it jarred your preserves, as one of my mentors would describe it. And I'll just explain that for our audience. Jarring your preserves happens in two ways. We hunker down and hope like heck we get through this thing, whatever it is. We all have been a part of that pandemic, and a lot of us were taking action and taking responsibility as best we could, and others were you're hunkering down. So that's the jarred your preserves. The other, hunkering down and being like a can of jam or pickles, or you can be like you. It shook you up, and in the shaking you up, took you on another journey. And I believe you took some time out to be retrospective. You didn't just jump from one to the other. I think there was in a period in between. Was that? Do I recall that right?
That is correct. So, so it's September 2019. And when you're an area sales director for a big Fortune 100 company and you've got accounts all over the country, you spend a lot of time on the road. I was spending probably three nights a week out of town, living in hotels, probably 3 out of 4 weeks a month, traveling. And so that didn't leave a lot of time at home. And I remember coming home in September of 2019 and my wife handing me my daughter's journal and says to me, "You got to read this." And I said, "Okay." So I start reading. She's 7 years old at the time, Coach Phil. She's 7 years old. So she's, young girl, and she's writing about her birthday coming up in October. And she's writing about the party and how good it is. All her friends are there. And it's just a great party. She's got the jumpy and all that good stuff that kids love. But she takes the line that caught my attention and jarred me, as you said, was when she said, "Unfortunately, my dad couldn't be there because he had to work." And then she twisted it. She didn't just stick the knife in, she twisted it. And she said, "And I wanted to call him and tell him thank you for the party, but I didn't want to bother him because his work's important."
Yeah. So what was that telling you?
So it like you said, it jarred me and it said, "Okay, is this how you want the story to end?" And you're right. I did go do some introspection, but I made a decision that very day. This isn't how this story is going to end, because as I looked around me at the executives who were at the levels that I wanted to attain, right? If you go from national sales director to that next level, to that next level, and that next level, every single one of them, when I talked to them, would complain about what a horrible relationship they had with their kids. And I just kept seeing that repeating. And almost every single one of them had a second wife. And I said, "Well, okay, so is that the cost of becoming the head honcho at this place?" And I didn't know that I wanted to pay that price. I knew after I read that journal entry that I didn't. So I made a decision. Okay, this isn't where I want to go. And I went to HR and talked to some of my friends and said, "Hey guys, I'm leaving." And I'm 7 years away from the golden handcuffs, the pension, right? The 3 years of your highest base average, the average of your 3 highest years for the rest of your life, plus healthcare and all those good things that we want because it's secure. And everybody said, "Are you crazy?" And I said, "Well, I'm also 7 years away from having a 14-year-old daughter who doesn't know me and doesn't like me, because I've seen that. And I'm also 7 years away from sharing that generous pension 50% with my future ex-wife. So it's not really that generous a pension when you cut it in half." And so the decision was made. And like I shared with you, Coach Phil, I took my pension, what I could get of it. I took my 401k, I took my stock options, and I took them to my good friend John Dewey, who's my financial advisor. And I said, "Hey, what can I do with this? And how long do I have before I have to get back to work?" And he said, "Dan, you've got a couple of years. Take your time, find something you love." And so I left the security of my corporate job and the future that I knew I had, and decided to go do something different. And this is the introspection time. I took a couple of months. I had 2 years, but I only took a couple of months played a lot of golf, just spent time with myself, got in shape, I was severely overweight at the time from just all the traveling and eating out and not being home, not sleeping well. And I ran into my good friend Gary Sanchez, who's the founder of the Y Institute, who happened to also have been my dentist for the past 22 years. And he says, "Hey Dan, what's this I hear? You're quitting your job. What are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't know, Gary, but whatever I do next, I'm going to love it." And he said, "Dan, do you know your why?" And so that's how my journey with Gary and the Y Institute began, because he took me through discovering my why. Not only that, he helped me discover my why, my how, and my what. So kind of learned my whole makeup. And that's what we do at Y Institute. So he took me, and you mentioned in the intro. So I learned about myself. I learned that I like to help people. My why is to contribute to the success of others, but I can also overdo it, right? I can also over contribute and get myself spread so thin that I'm not making a difference anywhere. I'm making a little difference in a lot of places. So I learned that I like to contribute, but I like to make a difference. I like to help others. I learned that my how, as you mentioned, is to challenge the status quo. So how I contribute to the success of others, how I contribute to a cause, how I contribute to any organization I'm a part of, is by bringing out of the box ideas, challenging the status quo and being different. Not afraid to be different, as neither are you, Phil, because we know your why is to challenge the status quo. So I like doing that. That's what I bring to the table. And then I learned that my what is to make sense of things. I like to help people make sense of things. I love solving problems. And when I looked at those three things, all of a sudden my life made sense. So then I realized why I'm always volunteering for everything, why it's hard for me to say no when somebody needs help. I also realized why I was so different from everyone, why I could never follow the rules. I needed to do things my own way. And I realized why I like solving problems. And sometimes that gets me in trouble, because sometimes I solve problems for people that don't want their problem solved, right? And that gets me in trouble sometimes. So when all of that made sense, I said to Gary, Gary, I love this. This is amazing. And of course, what does a guy who loves to help others say to that? How can I help you? What can I do? And Gary at the time was looking for someone to help him commercialize this venture. And so we joined hands. This was October of 2019. He took me for lunch at a Chinese restaurant across from his dental office, because he wanted to retire from dentistry and do this full time. And in December of 2019, I began working for him and helping him grow the Y Institute as his chief growth officer. And it's been a heck of a journey, going on 4 years now.
Cool. What I like about this is you're bringing something, you're not necessarily revitalizing, but you're shifting things from a different point of view. And some people may think this is all brand spanking new, but it goes back to early 1900s. If you know what you want and why you want it, there were major definite purpose. That's exactly what you described, what you guys are doing. Cynic's work is in and around this as well. He has I don't know how many millions of views he's had with the video, but it's a really good video that he's put together. He puts in the examples of Apple founders, how they do what they do. They sell the same thing as anybody in the PC world, but the way they tell the story is based on their why, how, and what. Oh, and by the way, what we sell is technology. So if you want to learn more about Cynic's viewpoint on what this is all about, it's a great video. I think you would concur, because you're walking the same path. I think you guys had some kind of conversations with Cynic, if I recall.
Yeah. So, the part of the origin story is amazing. So unlike you and I, Coach Phil, we saw that same video in 2008 where Simon talked about why, how, and what Gary did. And he was my dentist at the time already. What Gary did is he called Simon and he said, "Hey, Simon, I just saw your TEDx talk on why, how, and what. Can you help me discover my why?" And at that time, Simon didn't have a process or a system. He says, "Well, yeah, let's try to figure it out." So Gary hired Simon, and they spent 8 months working together, and they figured out Gary's why was to find a better way and share it with others. So what does a guy whose why is to find a better way and share it with others do with that? He says, well, there's got to be a better way to do this than to spend 8 months with Simon, because even if Simon lives another 50 years, that's only 75 more people we're going to help discover their why. So how do we do this better? And Gary became obsessed. I remember every patient. He had a captive audience. dental patients, right? Everybody that came in, he'd ask him, hey, so what's your why? Why do you do what you do? And then because his how is clarifying, his what is simplify, he wanted to be real clear. And so he wrote down everybody's answers. He wrote down questions that he asked. And after a while, he realized that there are 9 whys. And everybody has a little bit of all of them. But our primary one is our why. Our secondary one is our how. And our tertiary is our what. And so he put all that together into a discovery, is what we call it. We don't call it an assessment, but he started helping people discover their why. So he's a dentist working 4 days a week, but on Fridays and Saturdays, he was traveling all over the country because he implemented the why into his practice. So exactly what you talked about, Phil, I remember his ad on the radio. His ad on the radio. What does an ad on the radio for dentistry say? Well, we do fillings, we do crowns, we do root canals, we do it all. We have the latest technology, we have the best equipment, and we've got a great staff, and we'll do it all for $29 first exam. Come see us, right? He changed that. He said, you know what? I'm going to tell people why I do that. And his motto was, life is better. Again, better way. Life is better with great teeth. And he talked to people about why he did what he did. And he talked to people's limbic brain about, hey, why do I like to fix teeth? Because I believe that life is better with great teeth. And he talked to the emotional side of the brain that says, hey, if you've got bad teeth, if you haven't gone to the dentist in 5 years, you're embarrassed, you have bad breath, you don't go out, you don't eat in public, we're here to help you. That's why we're here. And his practice took off. His practice was, I mean, there was a waiting list to get into his practice. People loved going to his practice, and he did things based on his why. And he noticed that attracted people. Well, suddenly all his dental colleagues said, hey, can you help us go through that process? And he started doing that to the point where he finally developed the why discovery so he could share it more widely. And it's been a constant improvement. Just 3 years ago or 2 years ago, we put together the YOS, which is what you went through, where you not only discover your why, but you discover your how and what. And now we train coaches all over the world to take people through that process. So it's been, where we were talking about, hey, Simon could help 75 people discover their why, to, hey, we can help a few hundred people at a time or a few dental practices at a time, to creating a product that people can go online and go discover their why, or work with one of our over 200 coaches we have around the world to really dig deep and figure out why you do what you do, how you bring it to life, and what it is that people can count on from you. So that's the genesis story in terms of where the Why Institute came from and what we do today.
I'm gonna come back to where we started.
Yeah.
The 7-year-old who's not 7 anymore. How's that relationship as a result of you doing what you did? Put a full stop on it. Stop chasing the corporate ladder, climbing on the top of you didn't quite get there yet. You left before you fulfilled the big vision you had with that organization. So you're halfway up the ladder. Instead of climbing right to the top and having a look, you saw before you got to the top. Quite often what happens when I run into individuals that have climbed the ladder of success, lost the relationships with children and spouses, get to the top, look around and go, oh no, this isn't what I wanted to get.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to go all the way to the top. You're smart enough. You listened to the signals and the teachers along the way. Your 7-year-old, what's going on now with the 7-year-old?
I'm glad you brought that back, because this was the second time I'd done that. So Coach Phil, I was in the military.
Right.
And when I was in the military, our daughter was a baby. And it's so funny because we learn these lessons and then we have to relearn them. And I remember being at a retirement ceremony for one of the colonels. And as he was giving his farewell speech, one of the things he kept going back to is thanking his family. And as he thanked his family, he was thanking them for their sacrifice and saying, for all the birthdays I missed, for all the baseball games I missed, for all the anniversaries my wife spent alone. And I remember saying to myself, well, that doesn't sound like fun. I don't want to look back 20 years from now. So that was a little bit of what led me to go leave the military, because I had then a 3-year-old daughter in 4 years, turning 4. And so my oldest daughter, we left, and then I was home. And then again, you learn these lessons. And so I had joined Baxter, and I had always been a sales rep. But when my daughter, in covering a local territory, so I was home a lot, I was able to do things and be there for my daughter, which I wouldn't have done had I been in the military. But then she graduated and she went off to college. So I said, okay, now I can climb, right? Let's start climbing. It's just me and my wife. We can move anywhere. And then when my oldest was finishing undergrad, we had a baby, our second baby at the age of, I won't say because my wife will get mad at me, but here we are. We have a 22-year-old and then a newborn. My when my oldest was getting married, we called it, hey, we're talking about teething rings and wedding rings at the same time, same family, right? And so Sophia came along, and so Jazz was off in college. I found her hubby, and now they're married. I have 2 beautiful grandchildren from her. So we'd finished that part of it, and I was ready to go climb the corporate ladder. But then Sophia came along, and that changed our plans a little bit. I said, you know what? We can move anywhere. But then we moved home. One of the things I was able to do, well, the reason I took that area director job in the Western U.S. was so I could move home, so our youngest could be near grandma and grandpa. But I was still traveling, because now that you're not near headquarters, you're having to travel a lot more, right? Even just for meetings. And so Sophia, woke me up when she was 7 years old with that journal entry. And I had the same kind of realization that I'd had when I was in the military. And I said, okay, let's not make it too difficult. Let's figure this out. What's great about what I do now, Coach Phil, is I'm in Albuquerque. My parents were here. My mom died 2 years ago. So Sophia got to enjoy grandma for as long as she was around. We're near her maternal grandparents, paternal grandfather. We eat dinner together. We have breakfast together. I get to coach her. I coach my oldest daughter in track and cross country, and I get to coach Sophia in track and cross country. As a matter of fact, season starts on Monday. And so we're going to start coaching and getting her ready, and we get to spend time together. As a matter of fact, yesterday we went, I got out of work. We went to the gym, and the only way I can keep up with her, Coach Phil, is on a treadmill. So I get on the treadmill next to her, go at my pace, and she can go at her pace, and I'm not slowing her down. And so we're getting ready for cross country season, and we get to spend time together, because you can tell all the stories about quality time. It's not about the quantity. It's about the quality. It's about the quantity. It's about being there and being able to help your kids when they need you. And so that's what comes first. It's, for me, it's faith, family. And we start there, and then we take care of family. And then comes, your mission, your vision, and everything else that you're trying to do. But if you start there, if you start with inside the home, I think everything else falls into place, because you can't be great at work if you're worried about what's going on at home.
Ain't that the truth? One of the things I've learned along the way, large corporations have the mission, vision, purpose, which a lot of times it's cliches, platitudes, and empty promises. You get the executive leadership team, they don't even know what the mission is. It's painted on the wall. You go in the foyer of your fancy offices across the world, and it's just lip service. Yeah. What I like about what you're bringing to the world is through this effort and your energy is to help people get in tune and aligned with what their mission, vision, and purpose is, and simplify it. I identified it before I met you into is if you know what you want and why you want it, and stifle the how. It's a little bit different trajectory or philosophy, but they do align. You can make anything happen because you're doing what makes your heart sing. And one of the I got a few notes here. I'm going to recap with the show. We're getting to the end here, so I'll save those for that. But I wanted to give you give an opportunity for people to find you. So I'm going to just share a couple of things here before we wrap it up and get your words of wisdom. Let me go make this easier for our audience to be able to find you. That's your website, and this is what it looks like. So it's easy to read, because if you go up to this area here, that's really hard to read any of that there. So if you just go to whyinstitute.com, lots of great information in there. Where would be the first place you would recommend they go besides the first page? That's a start, right? And then where?
Yeah, well, the first page is going to take you to just information about what we do. But if it just depends on what you're looking for. You notice there's a Why in Life tab. So if you click on the Why in Life tab, it'll take you to help where you can go and discover your why. You can go through our why discovery. You can go through our YOS discovery, which is the full version, what you went through, Coach Phil, or you can even take an online course where we kind of have an online course where you can go through and have Coach Gary Sanchez take you through it. So walk you through your results. So if you're looking just for a personal opportunity to discover your why, how, and what, and learn about yourself, that's where you go. The other place that we have is the why in business. If you're a business owner, you want to align your team. You want to know your why, how, and what. Your why, your how, and your what. But you also want to know that for the people around you, so that you can understand each other better, communicate better. We call it making better connections faster. It shortcuts the get to know each other process for teams. If you're a sales professional and you want to work with your clients and talk to them in their language, this is the stuff you want to do. And of course, we have a section there that says, hey, I'm a coach and I want to use this in my practice. So if you want to become a certified coach, you click on that and you learn more about that. The other great thing that we have, Coach Phil, is the Find a Coach tab. If you're somebody who says, hey, I discovered my why, I discovered my why operating system, but I want to work with somebody that knows this at a deep level so they can help me create my messaging, attract the right people to me, and make sure I'm working in my zone of genius, then you can click on the Find a Coach. We have got coaches, as I said, all over the world and lots in the US and Canada. So click there and you can find a coach. So it's pretty simple. You can get to it fairly quickly, and there's lots of informational videos that we provide so that when you finally discover your why, you know who you are and what it is that you're getting.
Cool. And then one other resource, if they want to connect with you, is clicking of buttons. Just hang on. Here we go, right there. And to make that easier to connect with you, it's your LinkedIn profile. So if you wanted to connect, send a message, get more information, there's a couple of places that you can find Dan and what he's up to, and find out what your why is. If that's ringing in your ears today, tomorrow, in the future, they'll be around, I'm sure, for eternity, because it sounds like that's where they're going. What would be one last nugget that you would impart upon our audience before we wrap up the show?
You know, Coach Phil, I one of our coaches is a former Navy SEAL, Chris Smith, and he and a bunch of former Navy SEALs, all in their 40s and 50s, recently rode across the Atlantic, 3,000 miles in a competition. This is stuff former Navy SEALs do, right, to test themselves. And it was a months-long journey to row a boat 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. And when I asked Chris what he learned from that experience, the thing he said, as a YOS certified coach, he wished he had thought of it, but he didn't take his team through the process. And whether it's the why, whether it's strengths finders, whatever tool you want to use to get to know the people around you, he saw the importance of it, because they didn't figure some things out until they were way deep into the journey. And what he said is, don't get in a boat with people you don't know. And I took that to heart, because that's what we help people do. If you're going to get in a boat with somebody, hey, you're depending on these other 4 guys to row with you and get you across the Atlantic. Well, that's the way business is. That's the way our life is. The people we surround ourselves with, do you really want to take this life journey with people you don't really know and understand, or do you want to know them at a deeper level, especially when you're bringing new people into your organization, or you're meeting new people that you're going to do business with? I don't even meet with anyone, Coach Phil, unless I know their why. I send them a discovery. It takes 8 minutes, and I can know a little bit about them before I ever even meet with them, so that we can have a better conversation and I know what they're looking for. Right. So when I was talking to Coach Phil, I knew that your why was to challenge the status quo. So I knew I needed to talk to you about how we were different, how we were outside the box, how we do things differently at Y Institute. And that was going to appeal to you. And so whatever else I know, great. I learned a lot from you, and we happened to have a great first conversation. But it's an advantage that I enjoy having, and it's something I enjoy sharing with people. So yeah, that would be my nugget. Don't get in a boat for a 3,000-mile row across the Atlantic with people you don't know, don't just start a company. Don't start a partnership without understanding the people around you.
Great advice. I appreciate you taking time to be here to impart a little bit of what you know about some powerful tools and experience that you have as a leader, as a father, and former military guy. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me, Coach Phil.
You'll be having a coffee or something in the green room for a minute. I'll be right back with you. Well, if you didn't learn anything, you weren't listening because I don't write a lot of notes usually, but I got a bunch today. Pivot is what he did. He paid attention to the voices and the people and the teachers, even his 7-year-old daughter. Do what you love is another note that I've got here. Do introspective thinking. Figure out what your reason for getting out of bed is, your why. Watch the Cynic video again, Phil. That's for me. And if you haven't watched it, go. It's a TEDx one. It's easy to find. Simon Sinek, The Golden Circle. And know the people in the boat that you're getting in. I think that that's a really good sage advice, because many of us will spend more time courting our partner in life than we will a partner in business. We find somebody, they got the right money, they got the right energy initially, we think. They tell us certain things and we believe what they're saying, only to find out we got the wrong person in the boat. And maybe you're in the wrong boat. Maybe this is a way for you to help yourself find out where that is. So you can go to the Y Institute. The information's in the replay if you wanted to see it. And that brings us to the end of the show. Again, if you like this, share it out, tag us, let people know that you got something out of the Business Renovator. And we look forward to your feedback, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Until next time, remember one thing is this. The you and wonderful is representing you. You are unique and you are truly wonderful. So continue acting like your wonderful self. That's it for us today.
I get shit done, I have fun. It's my time and I'm the one. I'm breaking